I think that la relève is an important issue in our society, but I don't actually feel that I think about it in the same way that maybe the generation that came before me is thinking about it. So for me, la relève is not a question of a lack of young people in our sector. For me, it's a question of form. From my perspective, especially in the 80s, the sector professionalized a lot. So there was a lot less going on that was grassroots, and a lot more social services and a lot of organizations that seem to, in many respects, resemble how things are done in the for-profit sector. And so for me personally, that's not something that attracts me. I'm looking for ways of being engaged that are much more informal, much more collaborative, so not thinking just within the constraints of recruiting and retention. Like, those are management terms. Recruiting and retaining people in organizations, I think for me we have to get out of the idea of thinking about the sector in terms of groups of organizations, that we need to think about the different ways that people are organizing. From my personal experience and just talking to other young people who've come into working in the community sector, they've often they've often fallen into it by accident. So you don't learn about the nonprofit sector in elementary school, in high school, and not even in university. So for me, the challenge is that we need to create opportunities throughout our educational experiences as a society to raise awareness and to raise an understanding of what the sector is, and first that it exists and what it is and how you might get involved. And people mostly see it as a place to go volunteer, and they don't even see it as a sector to go volunteer in. They see their local community organization as a place to volunteer. So after they realize there's a sector out there, then the challenge is for us to help them connect to people and take the time to do that. I do feel that the flexibility that already exists in the sector is an advantage, that people who are young people in the sector or young people who are thinking about coming into the sector, that the sector is already much more flexible than, say, governmental or for-profit sector is. Although the for-profit sector is becoming much more flexible, but I think for the nonprofit sector, the way that it's more flexible, that's different from the for-profit sector, is that it's flexible in terms of being able to very quickly engage in a variety of things, of tasks, but also of vantage points. And so I think that that's a really attractive thing for people, particularly coming right out of university, and people who are making career changes. I don't think that the difference between the older generation and the newer generations coming into the community sector are that different in terms of the way they think about the work that they do and the missions of the organizations, the focus on social justice. I think that is pretty much the same. What I think might be different is the interest in the organizational life that they experience on a daily basis. It's an interest in living the change that you're trying to create in the world. And so rethinking the organizational structures, the organizational cultures that people who work in the sector are experiencing on a daily basis, so that they can have a deeper impact on the issues that they're trying to affect. The question of transfer of knowledge from generation to generation, to me, is a really interesting one, because I think that in the past we've thought of that transfer in a unidirectional way, so that the knowledgeable older person hands over their knowledge to the younger person. I think that we need to think about it in more of a mutual way, so that the mentorship is going both ways, so that we create dialogue between the generations versus a handing over, the idea of a succession, let me just pass the baton to you and you can take it and you can then lead the way. I think it needs to be dialogue based.